got 2 more air handlers to go, so let me shut them down. Whew. Fact of the matter is, it's just noisy in this shop. When you're sawing or drilling or anything like that. Walls are kind of tight and they're nothing but concrete blocks. When you've got air handlers going, dust collectors going, it's noisy. It's just flat out noisy in here. And you know, truth be told, isn't there too much noise in our lives almost all the time? Everywhere we go. It's hard to find quiet sometimes. And this isn't going to be a long bonus sermon, not really. It's just going to sort of go a little bit deeper than what I said from the sanctuary at Christ. I was using the analogy of golf because the truth be told, some writers have said eventually when you talk about the game of golf, you reach a point where you have to talk in mystical terms. That's just what the game is like at some point. Well, when you get to the mystical terms, at some point that leads you to thinking about it can be quiet. Some people play golf not for the drinks and the gambling and the smoking of the cigars and all that. I know friends who play golf simply because it gets them out in nature and they can have some peace and quiet and they can concentrate on what they're doing. Some say they pray on the golf course. I hope they're praying for more than, Lord, help me sink this putt. Back in the day when I played golf, I never played golf. I whacked the golf ball a lot. But that's why I went to the golf course. I was mentioning from the sanctuary, the little county country club right beside the student apartments for Princeton. The apartments I was in were technically the overflow apartments. They were about 2.5 miles away from campus out on US 1. They weren't right in town in Princeton. The men and women who lived in the old dormitories and the old apartments scattered around campus, they lived in the historic Gothic buildings. The rest of us, we lived in these brick cubicles out off of US 1. So it was important for us every now and then to get over to the golf course and to leave this massive highway, which other than the Garden State Parkway and the New Jersey Turnpike, it took most of the traffic from Trenton up to New Brunswick. And you could not find a time of day out right by US 1 when it wasn't noisy. Trucks, cars, buses, you name it. It's even worse now, I hear, because remember, I'm talking years ago. But when we got to those 5 holes that were across the canal, it just got quiet. And that's something that I think we probably need more of, not as a last resort. Oh, I'll have a quiet day because, well, my plans fell through, or my date canceled, or the play day, or whatever. It didn't work out. But maybe as our first priority, making time to shut everything off and have some quiet. That's what Jesus was doing here in Mark chapter 1. Excuse me if I cough, I've still got sawdust all in the air. When it said he went out to that deserted place to pray. And you know, we've got a pattern of Jesus doing that all the time. As busy as he was in his 3-year ministry here among us, he always found time to get out to the quiet. And that's where he let God build him back up and feed him and rejuvenate his spirit. That's when his prayers were important. I'm not certain, but what that might be one of the gifts that this COVID pandemic is giving to us that we may be missing. It's kind of forcing us into quiet. I just got a call from one of the Mulberry members, Barbara Campbell. Said she wouldn't be at outdoor worship on Sunday over in Mulberry's parking lot. Somebody in her retirement community has COVID, so they've quarantined everybody. And that means essentially everybody has to stay home. Not a great idea, not a great thing to hear that is forced upon you, but buried in that is the idea that even if it's enforced, we didn't have any choice in this case, there's the opportunity for quiet. That's not something to be laughed at. It's not something to say, oh, maybe it's not that important. Jesus did it so often that maybe we should think about it really is important. We're not that far away from Ash Wednesday in Lent. And remember, we're going to mark the beginning of Lent by remembering Jesus went and spent 40 days in the wilderness, praying, fasting even. And it wasn't during the quiet time in the wilderness that he was tempted. It was at the end of it that he was tempted. Don't forget that. All throughout the scriptures, we hear about him taking the time to go up the mountain, to go to a deserted place like we have here in Mark chapter 1, to take his disciples and go away so that they can have time that's quiet. That's part really of what I hope to have happen this Sunday after worship at Mulberry. I'm going to head and hit the interstate right away after church. I've got the camper hooked up by then. And the bonus sermon that I want to shoot in Northwest Georgia will take me an hour and a half, 2 hours, maybe on Monday. But I've got Sunday night, and ironically the Super Bowl's on, but I'm going to be camping up in the mountains right on the South Carolina-Georgia line, and there's no TV there. So I won't be watching the Super Bowl. I'll have Sunday night, I'll have the drive Monday and Monday night and part of Tuesday, and I'm actually looking forward to it. It'll be quiet time. It'll be time, like Jesus is pointing out, is important here. And that's the whole point. I don't need to belabor it. I don't need to go into great detail. And really the only reason I'm shooting this down in my shop and not upstairs in the study was right at the beginning. It didn't take much imagination, even on the video, for you to hear when all the equipment's running. This place is far too noisy. I wouldn't even try it without ear protectors on. Losing my hearing just isn't on the agenda for me, and that's what would happen before too long. This equipment's just too loud, too noisy, too high frequency for that. That's the point. Not as a last resort, not because it's enforced, but maybe deep within all of the trauma of the COVID pandemic, there's that kernel of possibility for us to be quiet. And in the quiet, to let God speak to us. I'm convinced that's why a lot of people play the game of golf. And that was the whole point to get at with that. Is that among other things that golf can teach you, it can teach you sometimes the opportunity to be quiet. The bulletin cover, and I mentioned it earlier, is a picture of the 17th fairway at Princeton Country Club, the Mercer County course. And it was there one evening that I hit the most unbelievable golf shot I think I've ever hit in my life, probably. It's that long dogleg par 5. And we went over and we played at Princeton because it was cheap. You could go over and we would pay $6. And we would do that because it would be after 3 p.m. And you could play as much golf as you could get in until it was dark. The rule was you had to be off the course at dark. So we played right up to dusk. And one time there were 4 of us playing, and we were on that back section of 5 holes, got to the 17th tee. And I was the worst golfer of the bunch. They all knew that. Jeff, Bobby, and Mike all just knew I was going to be last. I never had the honors because I wasn't a very good golfer. Still aren't a very good golfer. But last on that tee, the 17th, it was a big, big dog leg. And I put the ball on the tee, addressed the ball, made my swing, and the sound of it, the feel of it, was just incredible. And as I'm watching and I look up, all 3 of my friends are staring, dumbfounded. And we watched, it was one of those high visibility yellow balls. We watched as that ball disappeared into the twilight. Most unbelievable shot I've ever made in my life. Felt good, looked good, everything sounded perfect. My friend Bobby looked over at me, and nobody said a word for a few moments. Just was absolute quiet. We were dumbfounded. And finally Bobby looked over at me and said in a very quiet voice, "Sellers, I've been watching you play golf for 3 years, and you're the worst golfer I know. That's the most unbelievable shot I've ever seen you make. That's the most unbelievable shot I think I've ever seen anybody make." And I didn't know what to say, and Mike and Jeff didn't know what to say. We just kind of stared at one another. And then we got our bags and put the shoulder straps on and started walking, and I was obviously far one, so everybody else hit a shot, but it was almost dark. And the irony of it is, we got around that dog leg, we never found my ball. Never. No clue. Where did it go? The only thing we can think of is I had a shot so long and it was so straight that the whole dog legged and the shot kept going and went over the fairway and ended up in the Delaware Raritan Canal. And that would have put the shot at something like 300 yards. I'd never hit a golf shot like that before in my life. Never hit one since. Probably never will hit one like that again. And the way the impact of that shot descended upon us is that it left us just completely dumb, silent, stupefied. And yet that was a perfect silence. One of those perfect moments. When we look for quiet, it doesn't have to be a last resort. Jesus made it a priority. Maybe we can do that. And maybe in the priority we'll start to hear God talk to us about what God can keep showing us right in the midst of a pandemic. Maybe as we start approaching Lent. Maybe as we continue the worship pattern we're in and start to talk about when do we start bringing things back to normal. Maybe we need to be quiet and listen to God and tune out all the noise around us. Something I'm going to do for the next couple of days. I invite you to do the same. See what happens. I don't think you'll be disappointed. And we'll pick up here in the next video bonus sermon about my quiet up in Northwest Georgia. We'll pick it up then. Meantime, God bless you all. Stay safe, stay warm. We do indeed miss you. And I've got some more wood to saw because these are going to be the torch stands for Ash Wednesday service. So you guys enjoy the rest of your day, night, whatever it is, and I'm going to cut some more lumber. Okay? Amen. We love you.